everybody. Welcome
Hey there.
back. We're excited to have you. We have a fun topic to discuss, and I'm excited to jump in. So, today we're going to be talking about musicians who inspire us, and I'm really excited to hear from Ashley. I have so many people, it's so hard to choose one, so I'm grateful that I'm going to hand this off to Ashley first and hear what she has to say. I feel like different musicians inspire me for different reasons, and so it's cool to dig around and hear from other people. So let's hear from you, actually. What are some musicians who inspire you? It could be one, it could be multiple. And what about them inspires you? Is it their persona? Is it their energy? Is it their actual music? Yeah,
Okay.
what do you have to say?
Yeah. I'm going to take this in a direction because I think that you're right, Stephanie. There are so many. I could talk for days about this, about the musicians that inspire me. I think all in all, really like any time I encounter someone that makes music in any capacity, it's inspiring in many ways. But the one that popped into my head when I first heard the question, because the second part is like just spend some time researching them and getting to know what their life was like. When we can connect with a person's story, it can really help us connect with that person, like from a sense of shared humanity, which, as you know, if you've been listening to our podcast for a while, is what we're all about. And if you're new here, then that's what we're all about, connecting with our sense of shared humanity. So one of the people that pops into my mind when I think of that, I'm gonna take it back a couple hundred years, is Clara Schumann. And I find her life story to be so fascinating and inspiring. She lived, in the romantic period of Western classical music, so like 1800s. She was married to Robert Schumann, who I would say up until fairly recently, mostly when you heard the name Schumann, that's who people were referring to because he got credit for, being the Schumann for a long time. Even though Clara was incredible. She started really young a career as a concert pianist. Her dad taught her piano lessons when she was a kid. She toured all over Europe. It's because of Clara Schumann. She would memorize her piano concerts, and she was one of the very first people to do that. And so, I guess we have her to thank or hate for that. And she married Robert Schumann. She was quite a bit younger than him when she was young, and I think she had 9 children with him. And their life was it doesn't sound like their life was very easy. She would premiere a lot of his works, and so I think without her, he would not have nearly the success or fame that he has today, because it was because of her performances of those compositions that a lot of them were even put out into the world. She, like I said, she had 9 children, and she still toured and still performed throughout her entire life to support her family. She was the one that made the steady income. Robert suffered from some pretty severe mental health issues and ended up spending the last few years of his life in a facility where he could hopefully get the support that he needed for those things. And so not only was he on his journey with that struggle, and so she was supporting her family during that time, but then to have him completely absent for the last few years of his life, and he died rather young. So then she was a widow for a long time. So I think it's incredibly inspiring that first of all she did all of that, because that in and of itself was, I'm sure, hugely challenging, but then also to do all of that 200 years ago when it wasn't common for women to be able to make a living, or for women to be able to have careers, or for women to be able to support their families. It's kind of mind-blowing, and definitely inspires me, definitely makes me feel connected to her, and a huge gratitude and appreciation for her. So that's my one answer. And I'll leave it at that so that I don't talk for way too long on the topic. How about you, Stephanie?
Yeah, I love that. Oh man, there's so many different people that come to mind, but the one I always decide I would land on, well, the one that comes to mind is Herbie Hancock. I got to meet him in grad school, and I think I've told you this story, but I'll share it with everybody else. I was working on my master's degree, and I'd been working on Rhapsody in Blue, the solo version by George Gershwin, and I was also taking jazz lessons. And the professor at Portland State at the time had invited all of the jazz students to come hear Herbie Hancock's Q&A before he performed Rhapsody in Blue, the orchestral version, with the Portland Hammond Symphony, the Oregon Symphony, excuse me. And so we were all there, and there was this large group of people asking Herbie Hancock all these questions. And one of the questions was, what have you found to be the most important thing you've learned throughout your musical career? And he said that, many students, many musicians think that being a great musician is at the top of the heap, but being a good human being is at the top of the heap. And if you make your priorities be just being great, it's going to be an upside down pyramid that's for sure bound to fail. And hearing him say that was really eye-opening for me, just because he has accomplished so many things in his life. And he was, accomplishing things that I could only dream of by the age of 20, and was, playing with all the great jazz musicians, and had gone to all the best music schools. And it was around that time that he realized that just being the best isn't enough, and that there's more to it than that. And so he kind of had this whole like spiritual awakening / existential crisis that then carried into this whole yes, being a great musician is very important and everything, but being a good human being, being relatable, being honest, being trustworthy, being just generally good is so much more important than anything you have to offer musically. And if you aren't foundationally a solid human being that is authentic and genuine and out for good, your music isn't going to make the kind of impact you want it to. And so I just remember that just totally hitting home, because I've been listening to his music since I was in first grade, riding around in the back of my dad's car, and then I got to turn pages for him when he played Rhapsody in Blue, which was so amazing for me. I got to meet him, and he was so kind and so supportive, so down to earth. He just would look through the music and say, oh, you can turn the page whenever, I'll just kind of follow you, just the most honest, kind person. So it was just really, really cool to meet somebody who has been really kind of an idol for me in a musical way my whole life. And that was quite a while ago, but it still just really stands out to me, because I haven't met that many famous people in my life, where I get to go into the back room and spend time with them and talk to them. And everything about him was just so genuine. And I also remember he was playing this just incredible improv on the piano, and then I saw I was like, can I see the music to what you're playing? He's like, oh, here it is. And then on the music all it said was do the D thing. And he was just doing all this crazy stuff, but it just said do the D thing. And I'm like, thank God, because I always feel I'm oh, I should be able to write out what I do, and yeah, okay, yes, that'd be really nice and all that stuff. And I'm sure that he knows how to do that. But it's just, you can be just really excellent at what you do, and just also be very human about it. So I think Herbie Hancock is the one that stands out to me. So this is a great conversation. It's just reminding me of all the good things that people have to offer.
I love that. I was on mute, so you can't hear me, but I was cracking up hysterically at the do the D thing, because I think I do that as well. Just write little notes. And I think something I tell adult students a lot too is when you're working on your music, if you have a knowledge of music theory, awesome. Write stuff down that is a music theory analysis, but also at the end of the day, you just need to write down something that helps you, that you remember. And so I might use your Herbie Hancock story, do the D thing. Because if he knew what that meant, and that was enough, to get him on the right track, to remember what he was doing, then that's really fantastic.
So, yeah, I loved it. It was just so
yeah. Those of you that are listening, we would love to know who your favorite musicians are, or who inspires you. And I would encourage you to get to know a little bit about them and their life. If you can't meet them, that's understandable. But if you can learn, a little bit about where they're from, what their struggles have been, it makes it harder to idolize them, which is actually a good thing, because then we can connect with them. We can understand that all people, even our musical idols, are people, and we can begin to relate to them in a way that can inspire us and give us strength. So we encourage you to look them up, share with us if you'd like, and if you're enjoying these conversations, we would love if you would take a screenshot and share our podcast on the socials. That would be amazing, so that we can reach the people that need this message. And we look forward to seeing you all soon.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Bye.
We are so grateful for you. Thank you for spending your time with us today.
Our podcast is inspired by people like you.
If you're looking to dig deep and discover your authentic artist, then join us today by visiting our website.